Some people wear ignorance like armor, parading certainty in a world that demands humility. This is not just a blind spot, it's a fortress that shuts out reason, reflection, and growth. I don't need to learn more, they say, as if knowledge is a burden rather than a tool. But make no mistake, this is a sign of true foolishness. It's not the lack of knowledge alone that's dangerous, it's the dangerous confidence in that lack. Imagine a man who insists, "That's just how I am. I don't change." This isn't stubbornness, it's a refusal to engage with reality. It's the mental rigidity that makes one deaf to new ideas and impervious to self-improvement. Stoicism teaches us that wisdom is born from the willingness to examine ourselves relentlessly. The fool, on the other hand, erects barriers around his mind. He clings to beliefs with a grip so tight it cuts off air to any fresh thought. This attitude, refusing to listen to reason, is a silent poison. It isolates the individual, alienates friends and allies, and traps the mind in a loop of stagnation. You've seen it. The person who dismisses every suggestion, every correction, as if their own perspective is a fortress too high to scale. Why bother, they shrug. I know what I know. But what do they really know? The truth is, they know very little. And worse, they don't want to know more. They mistake certainty for wisdom when it's only a veil over ignorance. The Stoics remind us that knowledge is a journey, not a destination. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Those who refuse to learn are choosing the path of resistance, blocking their own progress. Consider the phrase, "I don't need to learn more." It's not just a statement, it's a declaration of intellectual death. The mind ceases to expand. Curiosity dies. And with it, the capacity to adapt, to grow, to understand the world in its complexity. This is the first sign of a stupid person, the refusal to embrace learning as a lifelong discipline. But why is this so destructive? Because the world changes, and with it, the rules of engagement. To remain fixed in one's beliefs is to become obsolete in thought and action. The fool believes he stands on solid ground, but that ground shifts beneath his feet. The wise man knows the ground is never fixed. He moves with it, adjusting, reflecting, learning. This is where the contrast with Stoic philosophy becomes clear. Stoicism does not demand blind acceptance or passive resignation. It demands active engagement with reality, a constant questioning of one's assumptions. It demands the courage to say, "I might be wrong," and the humility to seek better understanding. Take Epictetus' advice, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The same applies to knowledge. It's not what you know now, but how you pursue knowledge, how you allow it to reshape your mind, that defines wisdom. The fool resists this. The wise embrace it. This stubborn clinging to beliefs without reflection is a hallmark of foolishness. It's a mental prison, and the prisoner often doesn't realize he holds the keys. He blames others for his ignorance, refuses to question himself, and mocks the idea of growth. "I am who I am," he insists, as if identity is a fixed rock, not a flowing river. But identity is changeable. The Stoics teach that we are what we choose to be in each moment. To refuse to learn is to refuse to live fully. It's a slow death of the mind and spirit. Look around. How many people do you see trapped in this cycle? How many voices do you hear saying, "I know enough," or "Why should I change?" They are the walking dead in a world that demands vitality of thought. This refusal to listen to reason is not a small flaw, it's a fundamental failure. It's the root of conflict, misunderstanding, and isolation. A man who refuses to listen is a man who refuses to grow. And without growth, there is no wisdom, only the echo chamber of ignorance. Yet, this is not a curse without remedy. Recognition is the first step. To see that, "I don't need to learn more," is a lie we tell ourselves to avoid discomfort. To see that clinging to fixed beliefs is a form of cowardice disguised as strength. Stoicism offers an alternative, the discipline of assent and the practice of continual inquiry. It teaches that every day is an opportunity to test our beliefs, to challenge our assumptions, and to expand our understanding. It invites us to walk humbly on the path of knowledge, knowing we will never reach the end, but that the journey itself is the reward. So when you encounter someone, or yourself, saying, "I don't need to learn more," recognize the danger. This is the first sign of stupidity, closing the mind's door when it should be wide open. It's easy to dismiss this as arrogance or stubbornness. But it's more than that. It's a failure to embrace the fundamental principle of wisdom, that knowledge is dynamic, that certainty is a mirage, and that growth requires the painful but necessary act of questioning. We all carry this tendency in some measure. The question is, will you let it define you? Will you wear ignorance like armor, or will you strip it off and stand vulnerable before the truth? Stoicism insists on the latter. It demands that we confront our ignorance with courage, that we accept our limitations without despair, and that we commit ourselves to a lifelong pursuit of understanding. This is not weakness, it is strength beyond measure. In rejecting the false comfort of, I don't need to learn more, you open the door to wisdom. You invite growth, connection, and clarity. You step out of the prison of mental rigidity into the vast expanse of possibility. This is the first step away from foolishness. Not easy, but necessary. Not comfortable, but transformative. Remember, there is nothing so foolish as to wish to be wiser than others. The fool wishes to stop learning. The wise man knows that learning never ends. And in that knowledge lies the beginning of true wisdom. Now, let's turn to another hallmark of foolishness, emotional reactivity and lack of self-control. There's a certain arrogance in reacting with anger instead of calm, in dismissing others without a second thought, in letting impulsive feelings dictate actions. It's one thing to feel emotion, it's another to be enslaved by it. And make no mistake, when you react impulsively, without reason, you strip yourself of wisdom. Think about the person who says, I don't have time to listen, or snaps, you're wrong, and that's that. This isn't confidence, it's a refusal to engage thoughtfully. It's a sign that reason has surrendered to instinct, that reflection has been replaced by reaction. The fool reacts, the wise man responds. Stoicism is clear, mastering your emotions is not about suppression but about control. It's about choosing how to react rather than being driven blindly by the first feeling that surfaces. Epictetus teaches us that, no man is free who is not master of himself. When you let anger or frustration dictate your words, you become a slave to those emotions. You lose the power to think clearly, to consider perspectives, to make decisions grounded in reality. This lack of self-control often goes hand in hand with refusing to listen to reason. When someone reacts with anger, they are, in essence, shutting down dialogue before it begins. Why should I listen, they ask. My emotions tell me I'm right. But emotions are fickle guides. They flare and fade, not reliable counselors. The Stoics urge us to sit with our feelings, to examine them, and to choose our response carefully. There's also the dangerous tendency to dismiss others outright, to reject differing viewpoints without consideration. This is not just foolish, it's arrogant and isolating. The fool believes his perspective is the only one worth hearing. He covers his ears to alternative views, convinced that his emotional certainty is proof enough. But what does this accomplish? It breeds conflict and misunderstanding. It poisons relationships and hardens hearts. It leaves the individual trapped in a bubble of self-righteousness, blind to the broader truth. Contrast this with the Stoic ideal, humility before the vastness of knowledge and the complexity of human experience. The Stoic listens, not because they must, but because they recognize that wisdom often comes from unexpected places. They welcome dialogue as a means of testing their own beliefs and refining their understanding. Imagine the fool who says, I don't care what you think. This is not strength, it's weakness disguised as defiance. It's a refusal to grow, to learn, and to connect. The wise man knows that every opinion, every perspective, is a potential window into a deeper truth. He listens first, judges later. Refusing to listen to reason is a form of intellectual arrogance that closes doors rather than opens them. It's a refusal to exercise the discipline that Stoicism holds sacred, the discipline of assent. You don't have to accept every idea, but you do have to consider it. You do have to weigh it. This discipline is what separates the fool from the wise. The fool reacts with anger and shuts down dialogue. The wise man responds with calm and seeks understanding. The fool's mind is a battlefield of unchecked impulses, the wise mind is a sanctuary of reasoned thought. And let's not overlook the personal consequences. Reacting impulsively damages your reputation, erodes trust, and isolates you socially. It's the quickest way to burn bridges and end conversations. The fool blames others for the fallout, never recognizing that his own lack of control is the root cause. Stoicism invites us to break this cycle. It teaches that we have the power to choose our responses, to cultivate patience and calm even in the face of provocation. It asks us to see anger not as a command but as a signal, a call to pause, reflect, and then act wisely. Consider the phrase, refusing to listen to reason. It's not just a behavior, it's a mindset. It's the refusal to engage with reality beyond the narrow confines of one's own feelings and prejudices. This mindset is a barrier to growth and a breeding ground for conflict. How often do we see this in ourselves and others? The quick dismissal of others' views, the defensive posture, the angry retorts. These are not signs of strength, they are signs of weakness masquerading as power. The Stoic response is radical in its simplicity: master yourself first. Control your emotions instead of letting them control you. Listen before you speak. Reflect before you react. This is how wisdom is born, not from the heat of anger, but from the cool clarity of reason. So, when you find yourself, or someone else, reacting with anger instead of calm, refusing to listen instead of engaging, recognize it as a sign of stupidity. Not just a momentary lapse, but a deeper failure to exercise the fundamental discipline of self-mastery. This is not to say emotions have no place. They are part of our humanity. But when they dictate our actions unchecked, when they close us off from reason and dialogue, they become chains that bind us rather than wings that lift us. Remember, blaming others for every mistake often accompanies this emotional chaos. The fool lashes out, unable to see his own role in the conflict. The wise man accepts responsibility, controls his impulses, and seeks constructive resolution. This is the path to freedom. Not the freedom to vent every feeling, but the freedom to choose how and when to express them. Not the freedom to dominate conversations with anger, but the freedom to listen, to understand, and to respond with wisdom. Emotional reactivity is a trap. It promises power but delivers weakness. It demands compliance but only breeds resistance. The Stoics call us to rise above this, to cultivate a mind that is steady, clear, and open. So ask yourself, when did I last react with anger instead of calm? When did I refuse to listen because my feelings told me I was right? Recognize these moments as opportunities to practice self-control, to master your emotions, and to choose reason over impulse. This is not easy. It requires courage and discipline. But it is the only way to escape the cycle of foolishness and begin walking the path of wisdom. It is the difference between a mind ruled by passion and a mind ruled by reason. In this lies the promise of growth and transformation. Not through denial of emotions, but through their mastery. Not through shutting out others, but through opening the door to reasoned dialogue. This is the second sign of a stupid person, reacting with anger instead of calm, refusing to listen to reason. Recognize it. Resist it. And choose the path of wisdom instead. There's a quiet defeatism that seeps into the minds of those trapped in foolishness. It's the voice whispering, "Nothing I do matters," or "I can't change." This isn't just pessimism, it's a trap that perpetuates ignorance and ensures stagnation. When you believe your actions are futile, when you see yourself as fixed and incapable of growth, you surrender to a mental prison of your own making. This attitude is the third sign of a stupid person, ignoring the value of self-reflection and denying the possibility of transformation. It's a refusal to engage with the fundamental Stoic truth that we are not bound by our past or our nature but shaped by our present choices. The fool resigns himself to a fixed identity, a static self, and in doing so, cuts off the very source of wisdom. Epictetus reminds us that, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This means your power lies not in external circumstances but in your response. Yet, many surrender that power, believing change is beyond their reach. They become prisoners to their own excuses, blaming fate or others, refusing to look inward. This is where the Stoic philosophy offers a radical alternative. It rejects the notion of a fixed self and emphasizes the power of disciplined action and virtuous choice in the present moment. You are not your past mistakes, nor your current limitations. You are the decisions you make now, the actions you take in alignment with reason and virtue. The fool, however, ignores this. He avoids responsibility at all costs, convinced that his situation is immutable. "I can't change," he says, and in that simple phrase, he chains himself to ignorance. He ignores the power of reflection, the practice of examining one's thoughts and actions critically, and thus remains blind to his own faults and potential. But self-reflection is the cornerstone of wisdom. It is the mirror through which we see not just our flaws but our capacity for growth. Without it, we stumble blindly, repeating the same mistakes and deepening our ignorance. Consider the phrase, ignoring the value of self-reflection. This is more than a behavior, it's a mindset that refuses to pause, to question, to evolve. The fool rushes through life, avoiding uncomfortable truths, preferring the comfort of denial over the challenge of change. Stoicism, on the other hand, demands rigorous self-examination. Marcus Aurelius counsels, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. This is a call to action rooted in self-awareness and deliberate choice. The Stoic does not wait for external circumstances to change, he changes himself, moment by moment. This disciplined thought and speech transform foolishness into wisdom. It's not a sudden leap but a gradual unfolding, a commitment to continual improvement. It requires humility to admit faults, courage to face them, and perseverance to correct them. The fool, trapped in defeatism, misses this opportunity. He blames others for every mistake, refusing to see his own role. He reacts with anger instead of calm, shutting down dialogue. He refuses to listen to reason, closing his mind to growth. And finally, he denies the possibility of change, resigning himself to ignorance. But you are not the fool. You have the power to break these chains. Recognize these signs within yourself and others. Embrace the Stoic discipline of self-reflection. Commit to the hard work of examining your thoughts and actions honestly. Accept responsibility for your growth. This is the path to inner strength and clarity of mind. It is a path that leads not to certainty but to wisdom, a wisdom born from the relentless pursuit of truth and virtue. In this pursuit, you find freedom. Freedom from the tyranny of ignorance, from the prison of emotional reactivity, and from the defeatism that saps your will. You find the power to choose, to act, and to grow. So when the voice says, "I can't change," remember that it is a lie born of fear and laziness. Change is always possible. It begins with the decision to reflect, to learn, and to act differently. This is the essence of Stoic discipline. It is the rejection of fixed self-concepts and the embrace of present choices. It is the courage to face discomfort, to challenge oneself, and to cultivate virtue. The fool flees from this responsibility. The wise man embraces it. The difference lies in the willingness to see oneself clearly and to commit to transformation. Recognize these signs of foolishness not as condemnation but as invitations. Invitations to awaken, to grow, and to become the person you are capable of being. Remember, wisdom is not a state but a process. It requires vigilance, patience, and humility. It demands that you constantly question, reflect, and improve. In this, you find the true power of Stoicism, a philosophy not of resignation but of empowerment. A call not to accept ignorance but to overcome it through disciplined thought and virtuous action. The journey is yours to take. Choose it with courage. Choose it with determination. Choose it with the knowledge that each moment offers a new chance to become wiser, stronger, and freer.